Okay, I guess we are beginning. So welcome everyone. I'm going to apologize right now. There's going to be a lot of me talking at the beginning now, just to get some announcements and logistics taken care of. Welcome to Sterling Scattered, and I think this is version 3. We are back to online services, only. And I definitely feel that it is the right decision that council made. It's still a bit disappointing that we can't be in the building. It has been good to be back, at least for our family, and to meet some of you in person. So we make the adjustments now to being back on Zoom and are very glad that you have joined in. And for me, who hasn't been on Zoom for the last 4 months, it's so lovely to see you all. Let's take a moment, and Andrew, if you can put us back to a gallery view, to all wave at each other and just greet each other in whatever manner you want. There. Where?
The top. You want to use the mouse instead?
Lovely to see you all. I'll just, and welcome to a couple of people who we don't see here every time. That's wonderful to have new people join us. I'll make a few announcements, and as I do that, I also invite you to go and get your candle if that's something you want to participate in. But I'll look at the bulletin for some announcements and just highlight those. Young adults are gathering tonight on Zoom at 7 p.m. PCT meeting is tomorrow evening, so if you have things that you want them to know about, contact them soon. Worship committee meets on Tuesday night, also via Zoom. So yeah, there's a number of meetings. So please note also that the memorial service that we usually celebrate at the end of November is coming up on November 22nd. And obviously we can't be in the building and do the usual candle lighting and that kind of thing. So we are hoping to make a PowerPoint of pictures of people that we have lost, either this year or in years past. It doesn't have to be just this last year. So I do have some pictures from the past from you folks. If you want me to use those again, please let me know. I'm not going to put them in automatically. So please communicate with me this week, hopefully, to get some of that in. And also about art photos. It's been lovely to receive some this week, paintings and photographs. It's been great, but missing is any children's drawings. So we would love to have that as well, if you want to do that. We're still figuring out how we're going to use those, especially since we can't be in the building at this time. I'd also like to mention some things. We are going to have a sharing time, as we did in the earlier version of Sterling Scattered, where we will have breakout rooms with between 4 and 6 households in one group, and approximately a 10-minute time limit. So you can think about that already. We do have a word for the day. If your sharing goes super fast and you don't know what else to talk about, we have a word for the day, and it is peace, because we are very close to Remembrance Day. So that is something we'll focus on a bit later. And now it is time to focus on worship, and I invite you to light your candles. Every Sunday we light our peace lamp at church to remind us of the presence of Christ. And so we light our candles now. And I will say, the peace of Christ be with you. As we prepare for worship, I'd like to talk a little bit about the coming theme, Kennedy's sermon is called Keep Your Lamps Trimmed and Burning. I'm interested to see where she's going to go with that. I'll just read the verses from the front of the bulletin to prepare our hearts. It's from Matthew 25, 37 to 40. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison, or go to visit you? And the king will reply, truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. We'll now hear a song from Byron and Andrew. The next few pieces will just go unannounced, so you can just go from one to the next.
Good morning, everyone. Kind of a feeling of deja vu here. I actually want to say one song, and then I'm just going to go straight into another very short one. And the second one is actually one that we've done with the kids on Sunday mornings in the Sunday school time back when we did that. So yeah, and if you know it, you can sing along at home, and the kids, you can, I'm pretty sure you'll remember it. In the morning, when the dew lies on the ground, and your glory's all around. In the morning, when the sun is on the rise, and your splendor fills the sky, we look to you in the morning, be our strength for this day. We look to you in the morning and give you thanks for this day. In the evening, when the day is almost done, and we watch the setting sun. In the evening, as we put our work to rest, noting all that you have blessed, we look to you in the evening and give you thanks for this day. We look to you in the evening, give you thanks for this day. God our Father, here's my prayer. Anytime and anywhere, He will listen when I pray. Hear the loving words I say. God our Father, here's my prayer. Anytime and anywhere, He will listen when I pray. Hear the loving words I say. Amen.
Hey everybody, I think we are unmuted. We are going to watch or all the kids, if there are kids here, we're going to watch a little video of a conversation that I had with our friend Freddie. If you remember Freddie, he's a little frog, and we had a conversation a little while back that we wanted you to listen to. Okay, here we go. Well, Freddie, I think number 3 would probably be caterpillars.
Oh, caterpillars are too slimy for me. I don't like them.
Oh, well, that's okay. Number 2 would be flies.
Oh, flies are my favorite. I eat them all the time.
Yes, but number 1 for me would be moths.
Moths? Oh, I never tried them. I heard they're a delicacy, though.
They are very much a delicacy.
I've always wanted to try them. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Moses, on helping me complete my top 10 tastiest insects list.
No
You're a big help.
problem. No problem, Freddie. But did you really call me just to ask about insects?
Well, that was the main thing. But if I'm being honest, there is one other thing that I'm a little what's the grown-up way of saying this? Concerned about.
Okay. Well, it's okay to be concerned, Freddie. Do you want to share what you're concerned about?
Yeah. Well, you see, there's this new neighbor who just moved in over there, and he looks different from me.
Okay. Is he not a frog?
Well, no, and which is why it was so concerning, because I live in the frog neighborhood. Kermit lives just over there, and then here comes this new guy, and he comes in. I think he has a shell.
Oh, a shell. Oh,
Shell.
could he be a turtle or something like that?
Maybe I've heard of them, but I've never seen one, and so I don't know what to do now.
Well, why does that make you concerned when there's someone who's different from you?
Well, because I don't know anything about him. What if I go to talk to him and he can't understand me, or I can't, or I can't understand him? That would be bad.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, Freddie, frogs aren't the only ones who experience this kind of thing. You know that we humans experience that too.
You do? But
Yeah.
you all have 2 arms and 2 legs and a face with a nose. I don't
Yeah,
have a nose.
that's right. I don't think there's many humans who would have turtle shells.
I haven't seen one yet.
No, me neither. But do you know that we often encounter people who are different from us? Even though we're still humans, we encounter people who have different skin colors or who have different languages, who eat different kind of foods,
Or
who
different kinds of insects.
yeah, or different kinds of insects. Yeah. Sometimes we encounter people who are of different faith backgrounds or who we just don't know much about. And that can also be concerning to us.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that?
Well, here's the thing. Even though we are different from one another, we believe that God calls us to love all people and to treat all people the same. Now, in the Bible, God actually tells the people of Israel quite a lot to welcome the foreigners and the strangers, those who are different from them. And also in the New Testament, Jesus tells us that we're supposed to love our neighbors. Now, that's not just the people living right next to us, that's anybody who we encounter is our neighbor.
And
So
you're going for frogs too?
that can count for frogs too. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen this when you're going around your frog neighborhood, but when I drive around the streets of Winnipeg, I see these signs all over the place in people's yards or in the yards of churches. And let me show you what it looks like. Tell me if you've ever seen this before, okay?
If it says free flies, I've seen it before.
Okay, it doesn't say free flies. It says, no matter where you are from, we're glad you're our neighbor. Have you seen this sign before?
I think I have, but only in passing, and I wasn't quite sure what it meant.
Well, this sign was created by a Mennonite church in order to show to all the neighborhood that they were happy to have anybody as their neighbor. And it really didn't matter where you're from. Even if you're different, you can still be a good neighbor to the people around you.
What if I put a sign out there and then would Turtle would be able to read it and then we'd be friends?
Well, I think even if you were to put a sign out there, that could give a message to the new turtle who moved in that they're welcome in the neighborhood. And even though they're different, that they can be friends with you. And then who knows, maybe you could bring over some kind of a welcome gift to welcome them in, because they moving into a frog neighborhood might feel kind of out of place and would love to be welcomed in.
I didn't even think about that. I should give them like a fly pie. A fly pie
fly-
to welcome to the neighborhood.
What a great idea. I don't know if turtles like fly pies, but I'm sure they could get to like fly pies.
I'll make them like flies.
We can learn a lot from people who are different. And so you might not only share your fly pie with your new turtle friend, but your new turtle friend might share something very special with you too. And so we can remember, as we become friends with our neighbors and those who are different from us, that we might have things to offer to them and they might have things to offer to us too. And when we do that, then it can be a real celebration of our differences.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go see if I can find a sign. Okay, and then if it goes well and I put it out and the turtle can understand it, then maybe next week we can Zoom like with the three of us.
That's a great idea. I'd love to meet your new neighbor. Let's
Okay.
meet next week, okay?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. Okay, bye.
Bye. Hey, Freddie.
Hey, Moses.
Hey, it looks like you made a new friend.
Yeah, this is Cornelius, and we are neighbors now, and then we become friends. And then, oh, guess what I learned about turtles?
What?
Their shells are attached to them.
Very
I may have learned
cool.
that the hard way.
Yeah, aha, nice. Well, Cornelius, nice to meet you. Have you learned anything about frogs in your friendship with Freddie? Cornelius, I think you're cutting out.
No, that's just how turtles talk.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know, Cornelius. Keep going.
That's okay. Freddie told me that frogs are amphibians. Want
And
to know how to spell amphibians?
sorry, Cornelius.
I
I think we okay.
am
Okay.
F
You guys just enjoy your time, and I gotta run.
I
Really nice to meet you, and
am
hopefully we see you again.
X
Sorry, I gotta go.
7 2. I don't think that's right. My bad.
Okay, today's scripture reading comes from Matthew 25, verses 1 to 13, and I'm reading from the NIV. At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps, but did not take any oil with them. The wise ones, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, the cry rang out, "Here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil. Our lamps are going out." "No," they replied, "there may not be enough for both us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves." But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the others also came. "Lord, Lord," they said, "open the door for us." But he replied, "Truly, I tell you, I don't know you. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour." The word of the Lord.
Okay. Hello, everybody. It's so nice to see your faces. I realized this morning that I don't know if I've met everybody in this congregation, and that's maybe very sad for me, but also it's very nice to see all your faces now. So I know that Zoom fatigue is real, but I'm very excited that, yeah, this offers me new connections to you. Yeah, also, this is my first time preaching over Zoom, so please bear with me as I figure out how to do this. And yeah, I hope this is good and rejuvenating for you as it has been for me to write it. So, as you probably know, today is Peace Sunday, a time where we gather together to reflect on the witness of the gospel of peace taught to us by Jesus Christ. Now, something you may or may not know is that every year MCC sends out this lovely little packet with the peace focus for today, which is truly wonderful, a wonderful and expansive resource. And I looked through it months ago and I thought, done and done. This has all the things I need for a fabulous service. And this year's theme is Peace for Refugees. But to kick off Peace Month last week, because the whole month is centered around the focus of peace, we had Joanna Hebert-Bergen in, who is the program director for MCC Manitoba. And she came and gave a much better and much more comprehensive sermon on how we as Mennonites can participate in God's plan for peace through working with refugees. She talked about how we, in fact, are refugee people, all of us, and we need to, put aside differences and expectations and just go outside of our communities and love one another. It was a very beautiful sermon, and if you haven't heard it yet, I highly recommend you go back. So with that already being taken care of, I had to kind of switch focus. I wanted to kind of stay in the same theme, so I started looking at different passages where Jesus talks about how we are to care for those in need. And one that kept coming up was the parable of the sheep and goats in Matthew 25. It's probably one of the better known parables. We heard it in Corinne's Prepare Your Heart moment earlier in the service. Jesus returns and he gathers his people together, and he splits them into two groups. First, we have the sheep, who noticed when people were hungry and in need of clothing, and the goats, who didn't notice and are confused because they did not specifically see Jesus. And it's a really, I think, a bit of a difficult passage of scripture because there's some harsh language in it. But I was dwelling on it, and it didn't really seem to add onto anything that Joanna Hebert-Bergen had been talking about. It kind of felt a little bit redundant. So I moved on from it, and I decided to go to the lectionary and see if there was a passage that spoke about active peacemaking or could be tied to peace in some way. And lo and behold, Matthew 25 was one of my lectionary readings, only it was the first part of Matthew 25. Matthew 25 is made up of 3 parables, the last one being the sheep and the goats, the second one being the parable of the bags of gold, where the master goes away and he gives 3 of his servants different amounts of bags of gold, and 2 of the servants double what they have been given, and one of the servants hides it away. And then the parable that we will be focusing on today, which is the parable of the 10 virgins, or the 10 bridesmaids, as I will now call them. Now, I don't know if I would have picked this passage to preach on this morning if I had not walked through that entire process, but I'm very glad that I did. It's fascinating that these 3 parables got put together. They're all a little intimidating and a little off-putting. They're told with this apocalyptic focus, not apocalyptic in like end of the world, but apocalyptic in revealing who Jesus is. And that gives them kind of a very serious stakes in the parables. This one specifically, the parable of the 10 bridesmaids, has always been a very frustrating parable for me. Growing up, this parable scared me a little bit. I think that's fair. As someone who is frequently late and often flying by the seat of my pants, it was very hard for me to relate to the 5 wise women. It freaked me out that perhaps I would be one of the foolish ones and just not quite make the cut. Part of me just still wants to throw this parable out. There's so much that still confuses me. Why can't the bridesmaids just share? Is sharing not part of who we are called to be as Christians? Why is the bridegroom so late? What could possibly be more important than his own wedding celebration? And why doesn't he recognize members of his own wedding party just because it's dark outside? That just feels like really rude. But there's something more important. There is something important about this parable. Otherwise, Jesus would not have included it. And so we have to start to look deeper. One way I think the first way we begin to see value in this parable for us today is the apocalyptic nature I spoke of earlier. A theologian whose work I really enjoy is Kate Bowler. She's a professor at Duke Divinity School, and through these COVID months has been offering up weekly prayers and meditations on her Instagram account. This week, she touched on the value of apocalyptic literature in the Bible. Kate Bowler describes an apocalyptic time as this sense of like an event horizon, this cliff feeling. Like maybe we don't think the end of the world is imminent, but we are made aware of life's fragility. We know what it's like to stand on the edge of a cliff or maybe a ladder even. For me, I'm very afraid of heights, so it doesn't take much, a stepping stool, and just feel that we are no longer invincible. I think apocalyptic times remind humanity that we are not invincible. And we are in one of those right now. 2020 has been one big apocalyptic time. And so there's value to study the literature that's written for those moments. Secondly, this sermon is for the disciples. This chapter is bookended by Jesus sharing some signs of the end times, which is very confusing and frustrating for a lot of people, and the beginning of the end of his ministry here on earth. He moves from the parables right into sharing about the plot that will be happening to kill Jesus. And so there's this weird message of like imminency and importance here. And so we as like fellow disciples of Christ need to take note. There's something important going on in these parables. So if we are Christ's disciples and we are living in this time, like many before us that can sometimes feel apocalyptic, what does this parable mean? Firstly, these 3 parables are about being ready and using our time wisely. There is work that the church has been given during our time on earth, and it is important that we do it. In the sheep and the goats parable, it's all about seeking out those in need and caring for the physical needs of our communities. In the parable of the bags of gold, it is about using our talents well, not hiding away what God has given us. And in the parable of the 10 bridesmaids, it is about being ready for a great party and showing hospitality to all those around us. If we look at this parable within the context of when it was written, we need to look at what weddings were like in that time and place. This was a very common tradition done by their version of bridesmaids, our best equivalent. Lamps would be lit in order to welcome the entire wedding procession, all the family, all the guests, everyone into the wedding festivities. The lamps were not just for the bridegroom. Rebecca Barrett Fox, a Mennonite woman who has given a sermon on this topic, states, "The oil in the lamps would guide other people to the groom. The oil welcomed people to the party. The light of those lamps said, 'You are included. Come here and be a part of this banquet. Come and see that these lights will keep you safe. So we as believers should be using our lamps to draw people in. The work of the peace community is to welcome people to this party and to keep people safe, which I think is a beautiful and noble call, especially during these times. Secondly, our work of welcoming people in has a purpose. It is for those around us to be welcomed into a great celebration, a party we know is coming. This is the story. In this story, everyone is waiting for the collective big entrance to begin, a light show blazing through the shadows of darkness. The welcome crew waited with bated breath, half of them with their lamps trimmed, half less ready to welcome people into the festivities. And they waited some more, and they waited still longer. They struggled to fight off sleep, and eventually the bridesmaids succumbed to sleep. I think we feel this now a little bit. This is what apocalyptic time does to us. This is how I have felt this week as I have paid far too much attention to the US election. I continued to stay up late every night of the week, refreshing the page, scrolling through Twitter, trying to make sense of this nonsense. And I'm sure some of us are doing the same thing for COVID cases or any myriad of other things that 2020 has brought to light. Apocalyptic time makes us hyper aware of our surroundings, but also very, very tired. We are like the bridesmaids in this moment, waiting. Our focus is the work, the task of welcoming others to the party. Our hope, however, is in the party, in the fact that one day Jesus is coming back to fix all the things that made life feel apocalyptic. Debbie Thomas writes on this parable as well in Journey with Jesus, which is a lectionary resource that I really love, stating, "The wedding feast is our ideal, our goal, our destination. Without it, we have no standard, no accountability, nothing to lean into, nothing to work towards, nothing to anticipate as we labor in God's name." The parable of the bridesmaids ends in a wedding. It ends in celebration and joy. We dare not abandon this glorious ending simply because we've grown tired of waiting. I think this is what it means to be peacemakers, is to hold on to this hope as we wait. And the waiting can feel long and exhausting, but we know what is coming. We have this assurance. So, if our role as disciples is to be the welcome party, to stay ready and observant for ways that we can show hospitality, use our talents and care for everyone around us, and also to be the ones who have to wait vigilantly, even though it may be a while for this great and wonderful celebration. The question then becomes how? How can we possibly do this? In the parable, the how is the oil. The oil in this text is often compared to mercy and faith, and I think this holds true, but not in the shaming way that I interpreted it as for so long, that if you aren't good enough or don't measure up, you're out and you will no longer be invited to the party. I offer up the possibility that the oil is a softer mercy and a gentler faith, produced by the nurturing of your own self and faith. Keeping our lamps trimmed and our candles burning is to practice self-care. We are most able to welcome others in and to use our gifts well, to even spot those hungry and in need when we are mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically full. We are most aware of our surroundings when our needs are met and we are overflowing with God's presence. We are most able to work for peace in this world when we are holding tight to a peace within ourselves. I am in a podcast club with, it's like a book club, but we never had time for a real book, so we decided to make it a podcast club with a few women who are close to me and are either in ministry or feel some tug towards church ministry. We meet regularly to talk about theology and the church, but also just to check in with each other and see how we're doing. This week, my one friend asked the group, "How's your soul doing?" I honestly had no idea. In that moment, I really had to do like a full body scan of myself and be like, how is my soul doing? I had been running on empty. School is in midterm crunch session, so a lot of assignments are due. Work is busy and it's good and I love the work, but also it's a lot. And Winnipeg had just announced that we were going into code red, and then the election was coming up and it hadn't even happened yet, and it was already consuming me. It just felt like everything was kind of stacking up, and they were all good things, or some of them weren't, but they were all things that I needed to pay attention to, but I wasn't paying attention to myself in that moment. I was not caring for my soul as I needed to. And because of that, the people that I needed to care around me, it was hard for me to see them. For the rest of the week, I tried to be much more attentive to how I was honestly doing and putting things in my path that would give me life. I got to write a sermon this week, which is like one of my favorite faith building activities. I always feel closest to God when I'm doing the research and every part of writing a sermon. So that has been really life-giving to me this week. I intentionally spent time walking with friends because the outdoors were beautiful this week. And then I got to see people from a socially distanced location that felt safe for everybody. I took long baths in the evening where I could just shut my brain off. And I read for fun. I did a lot of things that felt very good and kept me hanging on. The question we must ask ourselves during this time is, how have we been keeping our lamps trimmed? How are we caring for ourselves? To be a peacemaker is not to expend all your resources on others with no thought to your own well-being. If we do that, we are like the 5 foolish bridesmaids, expending all our energy and resources immediately and not having any left for important and crucial moments. We need to do what we can do, but also to care for ourselves in the process. Otherwise, when the party comes, we will be in crisis mode. Friar, it's a difficult name. Friar Gaetano Piccolo, I'm saying it with confidence, is a Jesuit priest who talks about this, saying that about the 5 wise bridesmaids. It is not their ability to stay awake, but how they've prepared their lamps. Sometimes our lamps can even go out, but if we know how to light them again and to use it, in dark times, we will know what to do. We are in dark times. I think it's okay to acknowledge that. The world feels fragile. We are in a time right now that feels apocalyptic. 2020 has been a year where much of the brokenness and hurt in our communities, our country, and our world has been revealed to us in new ways. We have seen rallies and protests, people putting aside their comforts for the good of their community. It is apocalyptic in that it has put us on the edge of a cliff, one with so much possibility, both for good and for harm before us. The waiting for the celebration of Christ has felt more exhausting and never-ending than ever before. And yet, there is hope. And yet we know that there is a party. And so we keep waiting. We keep living into the possibility of what could be. We stay vigilant for those around us who are in need of food, clothing, or to be welcomed into a more full picture of God's community. We offer up our gifts. We don't hide away what we have to offer the world. And we care for ourselves, taking the time to do things that give us life and peace so we can extend the same peace to the world around us. So when things are darkest and our lights go out, we know how to relight it. As we go into small groups later after some more prayer requests and announcements, if you have time after you are done discussing your prayer requests and are talking about peace, I would invite you to also add this aspect into your peace conversation. I would invite you to share how you have been cultivating peace in your own heart, or if you haven't been, how you can begin doing so. Thank you.
Jesus, lover of my soul. Jesus, I will never let you go. You've taken me from the miry clay, set my feet upon the rock, and now I know I love you. I need you. Though my world may fall, I'll never let you go. My Savior, my closest friend, I will worship you till the very end. Jesus, you're the lover of my soul. Jesus, I will never let you go. You've taken me from the miry clay, set my feet upon the rock, and now I know I love you. I need you. Though my world may fall, I'll never let you go. My Savior, my closest friend, I will worship you until the very end. I will worship you until the very end.
Thank you. Thank you for Kennedy for sharing that new perspective on that particular parable. I think I'll have some things to think about in the next while, and Byron for your songs as well. We come now to that part in our service where we share with each other.
He who watches over you will never slumber nor sleep. He who watches over you will never slumber nor sleep. Oh, my child, lay your burdens down. Lay them at my feet. He who watches over you will never slumber nor sleep. He who watches over you will never slumber nor sleep. He who watches over you will never slumber nor sleep.